And I assume we are live.
Hey guys, how's it going? This is Marc Raimondi. I'm here with Esther Lynn for MMAfighting.com inside the world famous Panda Dojo Studios in Los Angeles, California. It is Wednesday afternoon. Big news broke earlier today. Dana White, the UFC president, went on Colin Cowherd's show on FS1, The Herd, and announced that Ronda Rousey is back. She is challenging Amanda Nunes for the UFC Women's Bantamweight title in the main event of UFC 207 on December 30th. It's a big deal. People didn't think that Rousey maybe would ever come back to MMA, but here she is.
Let alone before the end of the year.
Let alone before the end of 2016. But here she is. She's booked. It's scheduled. The whole UFC promotion has kind of begun on social media. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Surprised that she's back?
No, I'm not surprised, actually. I saw her in September when she was there to support Shayna Baszler in Cleveland. And even though I was there to cover the wrestling, I did, obviously speak to Ronda a little bit. And she was in great shape, and she looked like she was ready.
Are you not sick of the social media photos that have gone around? People saying, "Oh, she doesn't look like she's ready to fight." Can we stop with that stuff already? Like, we don't know when these pictures are from.
Exactly.
We don't know what angle. I mean, the pictures are weird.
Exactly. And
I actually maybe even look tall in certain pictures, so that's deceiving.
Pictures can be deceiving, and pictures are often lies. And also, we don't know when they were taken. I can say from firsthand experience that she looked like she was in shape.
Right. So I think a lot of people were saying, at least preliminarily that I've seen so far on social media, is why is Ronda Rousey getting a title shot? Now, obviously, we know that she was the champion for, I think, over 2 years. Mm-hmm. Obviously, she had a lot of impressive title defenses.
Right.
Lost the belt in her last fight to Holly Holm. Holly Holm then lost the belt to Miesha Tate.
Right.
Miesha Tate then lost the belt to Amanda Nunes. Why is Ronda Rousey getting the title shot? Do you agree with her coming back and getting a title shot? Or should she have come back and fought someone else en route to a title shot?
I actually think she should get the title shot. I know people will disagree, but she was a very dominant champion when she was champ. And also, honestly, I don't know how many fights she wants to fight. Why take the risk of her losing her warm-up fight and then not getting that title shot at all? And also, as I said before, she was a very dominant champion, and she probably would have gotten that immediate rematch with Holly Holm had she not had a bunch of other things scheduled.
The one that the UFC wanted Holly Holm to wait as long as possible for, that never ended up happening. I do agree with you. I think that deserve is a word that I really don't like in MMA because deserve, it really doesn't mean a damn thing. It really is all about...
It doesn't mean anything in prize fighting.
No, it doesn't really mean anything. It's only really used when it's convenient for promoters. Mm-hmm. But really, we've seen people get title shots off losses before. Happened with Chael Sonnen against John Jones. Happened with Nick Diaz against George St. Pierre. Mm-hmm. Happened with Frankie Edgar moving down to fight Jose Aldo. It's happened before. It's not unprecedented that it's happening. And Ronda Rousey, I mean, look, let's be honest. She's one of the most transcendent stars in the history of the entire sport. It's her and McGregor, as far as popularity. I would even say that, at least from a mainstream perspective, Ronda Rousey is even more popular than McGregor in a sense. Maybe she doesn't draw as much money on pay-per-view as McGregor has, because some of those, those last few pay-per-views have been massive. But in terms of mainstream stardom, all the movies she's been in, there's one person that I always get asked about as an MMA reporter. It's always Ronda Rousey. Yes. When is Ronda Rousey coming back? Mm-hmm. And now we have the answer. Now, also on top of that, who really would she have fought in this case if she came back? Because Holly Holm is taking some time off now, dealing with the broken hand. Miesha Tate is already fighting at UFC 205 against Raquel Pennington. Yes. The one person who you could say maybe she should have fought right off the bat, because it's a fight that people have been waiting for a very long time, is Chris Cyborg. Does that fight interest you?
Oh, no, that fight is definitely the fight I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see it at 135 or 140, though. I want to see it at featherweight. That's the fight I want, but I can understand wanting Rousey to be the title holder before that happens.
Even if the title wouldn't be on the line? because there would be no title on the line.
Right. Even if the title wouldn't be on the line, but it just sounds so much better to say UFC champion, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
However, if she doesn't win this fight, I still want to see that.
I do too. I do too. It's a dangerous fight for her, though.
Yeah. I think Nunes is a dangerous fight.
Yeah.
I don't.
That's what I mean. Cyborg is obviously a dangerous fight.
Cyborg is obviously a dangerous fight, but like, it's funny, when we posted this all over social media, I was looking at the comments, and in the comments, half the comments are like, oh, she's gonna get smashed, or Rousey's gonna smash her, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It's not even gonna be competitive, blah, blah, blah. And I want to know why people don't think it's gonna be competitive, because Miesha is known for being one of the toughest, most durable fighters, and she was taken care of in the first round handily. And Nunes, even though she's known for gassing quickly or whatever, and she didn't really get a chance to prove that, she did say she worked a lot on her patience, and that she was much more patient in that Tate fight, however short it was.
Absolutely. I guess the early odds are out on Rousey Nunes, and Rousey's almost a 3-1 favorite. Do you agree with that? What do you think about that? I mean, I think that I don't know who wins that fight, because I don't think we know enough about where Rousey is right now.
Right.
Now, I mean, we knew plenty about Rousey a year and a half ago. Certainly, at that point she would have been a huge favorite against Nunes. Right. But right now, coming off this more than a year layoff, off that loss, you have to question where she's at mentally, maybe even physically as well. Is that a fair line for someone who just beat up, as you said, Miesha Tate, who just beat Valentina Shevchenko back in the spring?
I don't think it's a fair line. I think it would be more fair if perhaps we had seen Rousey change a couple things up.
Right.
Especially since Nunes is primarily a striker, and that's where she suffered in her last fight. And MMA, I never really, whenever there's a crazy line or whenever someone's a big favorite, I always doubt that, because you never really know. And I mean, what was the line for Tate Nunes? Nunes was a pretty big underdog, or
it was fairly close. I can look that up.
Okay. I just don't agree with a line like that, mostly because we have no idea how Rousey's going to look, because it has been such a long time.
Right.
And
a lot unknown.
Yeah, a lot of unknowns. So, and Nunes, despite not looking maybe spectacular against Shevchenko, did beat her, and that is actually something that's very difficult to do. Yeah. So,
Tate was minus 325 against Nunes, so actually a bigger favorite than Rousey is now against Nunes, which is very interesting.
And obviously that was wrong.
Yeah.
So.
Right. No, that is interesting. I did not realize that. I also want to encourage people to remember that the last time we saw Rousey, she did not look great. That's obvious. Holly Holm beat her up pretty good. That was as complete and flawless a performance as you're going to get. But before that, I mean, she looked invincible.
Right.
I mean, she was one of the most dominant champions in the history of the sport. 4 victories in a row in under 67 seconds. That is against good opponents. I mean, that's really, really impressive. So we have to remember that there was a time where we discussed Ronda Rousey like she was this unbeatable, incredible figure, because she was at that point.
She was at that point, and it's interesting because it almost. I had said this before in our discussion that like Holly winning was a big thing for the women's division, because it almost made it look like there was no competition. That women weren't. The bantamweight women weren't good fighters, which wasn't true. They're actually all great fighters. The thing is, Ronda was exceptional. And who knows, leading up to her fight against Holly, Holly looked amazing, but there's, whatever other factors there might be, she did lose, and that did open up the field. And now that we're looking at this, now it's hard to, I think that she was so dominant, and I do think that this is a good matchup in that sense, that there's a chance for her to show that again, because I don't know enough about Nunes's grappling ability.
Yeah. And maybe not great in the clinch.
Right.
Whereas Holly was really able to kind of stymie Rousey's clinch game, which people, didn't think she'd be able to do.
Right.
Nunes is big as well. Holm is a bigger. Nunes probably walks around bigger than Rousey, I would imagine, in terms of size. She's strong. So it's very interesting to see. You know, like you said, I've seen both sides. Nunes is gonna walk all over her. Rousey's gonna finish in a minute. That's what makes.
No one is predicting a competitive
no
battle.
That's just MMA fans.
But no one ever really does.
There's no gray area in MMA. It's all black and white. Got some questions coming in, guys.
I'm gonna chime in for the competitiveness. I think one reason for that is both of these fighters seem very front runners.
Right.
Like once they start putting the beating on,
right,
that's pretty much the end. I think that's kind of the reason no one really thinks it's gonna be competitive.
Right.
It's gonna be an ass kicking by one female the other way.
Style wise, for sure, Nunes has always had her wins. Generally, have had her wins very dominant and very quick, as is Rousey. So when two fighters in this way get together, you assume it's really going to be one or the other.
Right.
You can't imagine that it's just going to be. And they haven't been in those types of fights. We haven't seen Nunes in a 3-round or 5-round war. We haven't seen.
No.
We haven't seen that from either fighter. So it's hard to even say that that's a possibility.
Nunes, the closest that she came was that 3-round fight with Shevchenko back at UFC 196, where she won the first 2 rounds. I mean, I think most people would agree with that. And then she lost the 3rd round for sure. 5-round fight, who knows? All bets are off. Didn't get that far against Tate, obviously. Another thing that I wanted to add in, that you mentioned the front runner thing. Now, we've seen Nunes, certainly in fights, that's correct, where they're front runners in fights, and when things are going well, they're really going well. Rousey's the same way. Nunes has been able to. We've seen her come back from losses and be fine afterward.
Yes.
We have not seen that from Rousey, just because there's no evidence of that yet. This is the first time. There's no example yet. This would be the example. So does that front running mentality where when things are going well, she's cruising, and when things don't go as well, we saw that in the 2nd round against Holm where things weren't going well. Will that carry over? Will that feeling carry over? And coming into this fight, it's going to be her first time fighting in over a year. The last time she was in the octagon, she was beat up, knocked out. Those feelings will linger, certainly a little bit. Now, we know that in other sports, in judo, she was able to come back and overcome.
That's what I was going to say. I think she's actually really tough-minded, and I think this is the kind of thing that would drive her. She seems the kind of person that would make that fire for her. She'll think about those feelings of loss and that extreme pain, and that would drive her towards moving back up. And what
I find fascinating is that if there is even just a little sliver of doubt in her mind, it'll be early in the fight. It'll be right away. And when is Nunes best?
Early in the fight. It's so dangerous.
It's very interesting to see if those two things match up. It could be a Nunes early victory, but again, you never know.
Was there someone else you would have liked to see Rousey come back against? Would you want to see her have a warm-up fight before heading into the title?
No. The only person that I still think they very easily could have done Rousey Cyborg right off the bat. I don't think anyone would have had a problem with that.
No.
Maybe it could be bigger if it gets built up a little bit more, but I'm of the believer that you have to, if the fight is right there out in front of you, just make it happen, because you just never know.
Right.
You just never know what's gonna happen. You never know who's gonna win, who's gonna lose. You never know if Rousey's gonna retire. Who knows? I would have been fine with doing that. Otherwise, though, Rousey Holm makes sense to me to do it. They could have done it right off the bat, but Holm is taking some time off. She's got the hand issue. So no, I think this is fine. I don't have a problem with it. Again, I'm not of the believer like, oh, she doesn't deserve a title shot. I mean, whatever. I said that it doesn't really mean all that much to me. Deserve is whatever. Dan Henderson didn't really deserve that title shot either.
And that guy fight.
Ended up. I have not watched yet. I was on vacation. I need to go back and watch and write about that decision and those scorecards. But from everyone saying it was one of the best fights of the year as far as UFC title fights. So did he deserve it? No, but he was in there for a reason. Same thing with Rousey. She's in there for a reason. She's one of the most popular fighters in the history of the UFC. It's going to sell a lot of pay-per-views, I'm sure. Hopefully Nunes is in on those pay-per-view points and she gets a cut of that money. But no, I have no problem with it whatsoever. It's silly otherwise. Now, I know there are some other contenders. Juliana Pena being probably number 1 right now. Valentina Shevchenko being right there behind her.
Absolutely.
Is that the fight? You think that is that number 1 contender fight is the one to make? Now that we know that Rousey's back fighting Nunes for the belt, is that the number 1 contender fight?
I would love to see that on the same card.
Same card?
Yeah.
Co-main?
co-main or 2 fights down or
Right.
whatever, it doesn't matter. I feel like there has to be another significant bantamweight contender matchup on that card.
In case someone gets hurt. Or just
In case someone gets hurt, that's a fantastic
Yeah.
reason. Because then they can pull one from the other fight. However, the
Yeah.
other reason is the problem with I think prior to in the previous bantamweight matchups and stuff, and having Ronda as the champ, was that they never really featured the bantamweight division as much. They only ever had Misha fight or Cat fight. They really didn't feature those fighters a lot, so you didn't get to see them. And so when they popped up as contenders, or here's the woman that's going to challenge Rousey next, no one really cared.
yeah.
As much as they did for Holly, because she was already a champion. So I feel like they need to really feature these fights so people understand, why do we care? We care
Yeah.
who's going to be next. Because I don't think enough people realize how good Pena or Shevchenko are, and they need to be featured on the highest stage in order for people to notice.
What about Cyborg on that card?
That would be amazing.
That'd be cool.
But I
If
don't know
they're
who she would
serious,
fight.
if they're serious about doing Rousey Cyborg, and Dana White did say today on FS1 that that fight will definitely happen. Cyborg Rousey, I mean,
Do you believe him?
man, I think that he wants it to happen because of course he wants it to happen. That's a huge mega fight. I mean, that is a whole lot of money for everyone. But I don't know.
I would be
I
disappointed,
just
though,
don't
if
know.
Rousey retired before that fight happened.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fight everyone wants to see. I just don't know. First of all, Rousey has to beat Nunes, so
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what happens in that fight. It's too far in the future to think about who's going to win that fight with so many other great fights coming up. But I don't know. I don't know if Rousey Cyborg will ever happen, but I do hope it does. That's why I said you could do it right away. You could do it. Do it in December. But and to your point for Cyborg, I don't know who she fights either. I don't want to see her at 140
Yeah.
unless it's against someone like Rousey. I don't want to see her try to cut that amount of weight again and fight someone that no one's ever heard of.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me.
No.
Casey, yes?
You mentioned before there seems to be a lot of mystery about Ronda and
Yeah.
how she's going to look. But there are 2 things that are not going to be a mystery coming to this fight. One was, after the Holly loss, you heard a lot from her camp that Ronda was tired, so much media, so much pressure on her. Well, she's the main event for the New Year's card, so that pressure is going to be just as bad for this fight. So that's going to be there. The second one is she's not changing camps.
Mm-hmm.
How does this affect the fight, you feel?
The pressure will definitely be on her, and she had pressure before the Holm fight, without a doubt. It just seemed like everything leading up to that Holm fight just went bad for her outside the cage. First of all, she just fought in August before the November fight against Correia. She did a lot of promotion for that fight. Then she came and started the promotion for the fight in Australia against Holm. And I'm sure she was exhausted because she was also doing like movie stuff. There was like the ESPYs over the summer. I don't mean to make excuses, but there were a lot of other things going on in her life. Then right before the fight, there was that video that dropped of her mom absolutely trashing her coach Edmund Tarverdian, and she had to answer questions about that. So I'm sure that was on her mind because she's very close to her mom and obviously very loyal to her coach. Then there was the whole situation with her dating Travis Brown. That came out right before her fight as well against Holly Holm. So all these things that had nothing to do with fighting and training. There was the Hollywood stuff. There was her mom. There was Edmund. There was all that stuff. Then she had to go and face Holly Holm, who was the toughest person she's ever fought.
And perhaps a lot of people told her the wrong thing about Holly.
It's possible. It's very possible. I think that a lot of people thought that Rousey would go in there and throw Holm down and armbar her very quickly, but that obviously was not the case. She's never fought or been prepared to fight any kind of striker like Holm was. So all of those things that I just mentioned added up toward her not just losing, but really just getting schooled by Holm. And I don't want to take anything away from Holly Holm because she may have beaten Rousey if none of those things happened to her before the fight. But I think that it played a part. And maybe it would have been a more competitive fight and Holm would have won if none of those things happened.
It plays a part into, in the post-fight interview, I remember Rogan had asked Holm, did this go the way you thought or whatever? And she's like, yeah, it pretty much went exactly.
Right.
It even went more to her plan than she even considered. She didn't even have to go to plan B. Plan A was the only plan that Holm had to implement.
Yep.
And everything they expected to happen happened, and there was no chance for Ronda to adjust or make any changes between round 1 and round 2. And you would think that in the future she would be able to do that, maybe perhaps not being so tired or exhausted. I do think Holm looks spectacular, and I think that she would have actually had picked Holm for that fight, and I think she would have won regardless. However, I think that the lessening of the pressure comes from now that she's lost. A lot of champions or a lot of undefeated fighters will tell you that despite the fact that that loss was so painful, honestly, it relieves a ton of pressure. There's no longer the pressure, I have to stay undefeated, I am undefeated forever, or whatever. She doesn't have that anymore. That's gone.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yes, Casey.
Actually, I'm going to disagree with that. I think, I've always said, taking the Nunes fight is actually more pressure. Because if Ronda fights Cyborg, it's almost expected for her to lose. If she rematches Holly, it's almost expected because in a sense, it's a horrible matchup for her. Nunes...
Not enough people know who Nunes is.
Right.
So if she loses against Nunes, what's left for Ronda? So that's why I felt that there's a little more pressure.
That is actually a fair point, and it is going to be much worse for Ronda's everything, for her stardom, for everything, if she loses to Nunes, because not as many people know who Nunes is.
There's also a certain amount of pressure in the fact that her success inside the octagon also ties into her career outside of it.
Right.
Because if she's not a world champion, badass women's UFC fighter, she's just not as marketable to these movie studios and all these projects that she's working on. I mean, that was a big part of what got her a lot of those roles, that she was like this invincible, incredible, unbeatable woman.
Yes. She actually finished a couple projects, I think, during the time off.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It really depends. I'm kind of curious when all these films drop, so that we'll have an opportunity to see how she's coming along as an actress as well. And maybe it might not matter. It might, but it will take a while. If she loses, it'll take a lot longer for her to develop the rest of her career.
If I were her, I would dial back the media obligations.
She probably will.
Going into this camp and until fight week. I really think that she prided herself in being the hardest working person promotionally in the UFC, and she was, man. They really ran her ragged, and they're doing a very similar thing with McGregor too. When he put his foot down,
right.
I think she needs to put her foot down a little bit, because it's a very unforgiving sport. If you're not completely prepared going into that cage, bad things can happen, and I really think that she needs to dial it back, focus on fighting first. If it means less interviews, it means less interviews. If it means less promotion, so be it. It's gonna sell. The fight's gonna sell anyway. It's gonna sell great. It's her comeback.
And
fight.
I think that it is gonna be dialed back. Her managers are WME, right?
her agents are WME,
Okay.
which is of course the new owners of the UFC, which is interesting. An interesting.
That's interesting. I don't know what to say about that. I don't really know how that's going to affect it, but I would assume because of that, they have her best interests at heart and will do whatever it takes to make sure she's comfortable or training well and still, doing enough promotion to make this a successful pay-per-view.
Real quick, I know there's a little bit of unknowns, but isn't that borderline, somewhat almost illegal to have your promoter also be your manager in the fight game?
Agent.
So I guess the agent's a little different, yeah.
It's a weird gray area, but yeah, there's certainly a bit of a conflict there, because if you're WME, obviously you want what's best for Rousey, but you also just spent $4 billion on UFC. So now you own the UFC, and you want to make as much money possible owning the UFC, because you just spent $4 billion on it. Now, a lot of those two things are parallel, her success and the UFC success, but there are certain things that are a conflict, and that's what they have to figure out. Maybe in her best interest to get someone else, a manager, someone else, an advisor who does not work for WME, who does not work for the company that owns the UFC to help her out in negotiations. She's always been, a very good company woman. Her and Dana White are very close. There's never been any kind of there's been some conflicts here and there. I remember The Ultimate Fighter, there was a little bit of a thing there, but she's got to make sure she does what's best for her as well, of course. And every fighter does.
I would wonder if it's more difficult to, negotiate for more money against a company that, WME gets a cut of whatever, but how much are they going to want to pay someone
Yeah.
that
I
is
agree.
taking out from the bottom line of a company they just purchased for a lot of money?
Yeah. Got some more questions, guys?
Who do you want to see as the co-main event? Or does this fight even need a big co-main event?
I wanted to see Pena versus Shevchenko.
But is that big enough? Do you think
Is it big enough? Yeah, it's big enough because people are going to buy this fight because they want to see Rousey's comeback fight. There's no doubt about it. Any co-main event is just icing on the cake. But I would like to see Chris Cyborg in the co-main event against whoever. I mean, it doesn't matter. At 145 pounds, maybe put the Invicta belt on the line and have her fight someone like Megan Anderson, someone like that. Have that be the co-main event. Can you imagine the drama that fight week when Rousey and Cyborg are in the same room on the same dais at a press conference? Can you imagine that tension? That would be incredible. And now they may not want to do that because Rousey already has enough on her plate worrying about training and preparing for Nunes.
But it would sell a pay-per-view so well.
It would sell the hell out of a pay-per-view, but this doesn't really need that.
They don't even need to fight each other. They just need to be in the same room and people will...
Now this pay-per-view won't need that extra push because Rousey's comeback alone is big money. But it would be a massive, it would be even bigger if Cyborg were the co-main event against anybody. Just don't do it at 140 pounds. Do it at 145. And then if they're really serious about having those two fight next, at the end of the night, Rousey wins the belt from Nunes. If she does, brings Cyborg into the cage. You have that face-off. Man, the roof will blow off the T-Mobile Arena. That's
a good way to start the next year, too.
Man, imagine leading into 2017 with those two in the cage on December 30th. Man, that is... I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Crazy.
So we're hoping for the UFC to start the 145, hopefully a 145 belt that night as the co-main event.
Or just have her fight for the Invicta 145-pound title. They're not. It does not seem like they want to do a 145-pound division. It does not seem like they want to do that. They seem very against that. So if that's the case, they're having Cyborg fight at 140 already. That's not a division either. So just have her fight somebody at 145. Maybe you can, put the Invicta fight, title on the line. I'm sure the Invicta would not mind that, having their title be featured in a co-main event on a big UFC pay-per-view, and do it against an Invicta fighter, and call it an Invicta title fight, and then have the women's the UFC title fight afterward.
I want to address the second part of Casey's question because we're also getting that question from the fans, which is, does Ronda have to change her striking coach to be competitive? What do you think about her sticking with Edmund?
I don't think she has to change her striking coach to stay competitive, because I think that she's already proven that she's one of the top fighters in the division, one of the elite fighters in the division. She can certainly be competitive. Whether or not she could achieve the level that many people thought she could, and she was already at the best level, but people thought that she could even be even better than she was. I don't know if she could do that if she stays with her current coach, Edmund Tarverdian. Now, I think that Edmund has been a great coach for her because he got her to where she is. I think he deserves credit. I'm not ready to just kill the guy and throw him under the bus and say, this guy is terrible, because look where she got. Look what she did. Yeah. Look at her resume. Just go on Stray Dog's Fight Finder and look at what she did to some very, very tough women. Right. I mean, we're talking about finishing Kat Zingano in seconds, finishing Siren McMahon, finishing Alexis Davis. These are all elite, top 5 level women's bantamweight fighters. Now, I think that maybe maybe Ronda, everyone has different needs in a coach.
Right.
It's different for everyone. Even if this person's not the best, technical coach, best tactical coach in the world, there is a relationship there that some people just mesh well with. And I think that situation with Ronda and Edmund has worked out for her in that way because they trust each other. They have that loyalty, and that could help her. Yeah. Now, would she benefit from maybe bringing someone else into Glendale, Glendale Fighting Club, and having her have like a Muay Thai coach, someone like that to coach her along with Edmund? I think that would help greatly. But I think Edmund is fine as her head coach. It would not be a bad idea to bring in someone else to help as well.
I do think there should be there should be a little more help coming in. I can't imagine Ronda at like an ATT. I mean, I know Nunes is at ATT, but I can't imagine her at a big camp. I can't imagine her changing camps, but I would like to see her expand her just day-to-day training.
Right.
And I think that if she were to even just take a sparring day or a day a week to go down to King's and, fight with other Muay Thai fighters, I feel like she would benefit from that.
I think that, and to your point, I do agree with you. Someone like that doesn't really fit well in a big camp. Like people, I saw people, oh, she should go to Alliance or she should go to Jackson's or no, I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense for someone like her.
No.
I think having someone who is dedicated almost fully to her is a good thing, and that's what Edmund is. It's similar to like Demetrius Johnson up in the Seattle area with Matt Hume, where Matt Hume is his coach for almost everything. I know there are other coaches, of course, at the gym up there, but there's that personal relationship, that loyalty and that trust that they've developed, and that has obviously helped Demetrius Johnson a bit. I think it's very similar with Ronda and Edmund. It's like one coach and one fighter almost making up the entire gym. I think it's worked a lot for her, but I do think you need to evolve. And I'm not saying completely throw everything out. I'm saying adapt and change and do different things. And maybe that's what they do have planned. We don't know. We don't know if that's what they have planned for this camp. It's possible they do bring in some more training partners and sparring partners and coaches.
Oh, one thing, a bit of oversight by us. It hasn't been official, but we did report that the main, well, it's not officially the co-main event, but Verdum versus Velasquez is also on that card.
That is on that card as well.
And
That's correct.
That most likely will be the co-main.
Right. It'll most likely be the co-main. It is not official,
No.
but yeah, we reported that, and I know a number of places have reported that as being a go. That's a good point. Yeah, that'll probably be the co-main event, but I don't think anyone. I mean, you can put Cyborg as the the third fight on that card. Or,
that's fine. I do think the important thing is there has to be a women's contender bout on it.
Yeah, I agree.
Why,
What else you got, Casey?
Well, you mentioned maybe Ronda doesn't work at these big camps like Kings, where there's a bunch of fighters down there. Why not? What is about Ronda that you don't feel would work in a camp like that, where she's more part of the team?
I mean, I don't know this for sure or not. I'm just speculating, but it did seem to work for her very well to have a personal coach that she works with every day, one-on-one. There's that relationship that you develop and that trust. And like I said, I mentioned Demetrius Johnson and Matt Hume. It just works well for somebody. Some people want to be at a super camp and get that kind of teaching, that kind of instruction, that kind of coaching. Other people just don't fit there, and that may be Rousey's case. Maybe she would have.
Maybe fits more into the boxing model where a camp is built around one fighter.
Right, and I think that's a model that I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that Floyd Mayweather doesn't train at some big boxing camp. He brings everybody into him, and he has one trainer, and he's got his uncle and his dad with him and everything, and that has worked obviously very well for him. That's how it goes in boxing. I mean, maybe Ronda can go and train at Freddie Roach's gym for a couple of days a week in Hollywood. It's not that far away. I don't know. I don't think, again, it's work. So I think there's a certain sense that if stuff has worked so well for you, and it has worked well for you, why change everything? I don't blame her. There's a loyalty there.
Just look at the small elements that have need to be changed. Which one would be her schedule? And
Right, exactly. And I know, obviously, her mom really cannot stand Edmund Tarverty, and we know that. That's on the record.
I'm very curious how that's going to play out.
I wonder, what it would take to just get like them all in a room and just say like, can we just, for the greater good, you know what I mean? For the greater good. This is her career. This is life. It's her daughter, and it's her daughter's coach, and I'm sure that Dr. DeMars, Ronda's mom, has some valid reasons why she doesn't like Edmund Tarverty, and I think people have echoed some of that stuff as well. But again, if you want what is best for Rousey, and she's loyal to Edmund, and she feels like that is her best chance at coming back and being as good as she can, that's her choice, and they have to figure that whole thing out, and no drama this time going into that fight.
Now,
yes,
when it comes to building up to 207, what type of Ronda will we see? Do you think we'll see the same Ronda where she said, I can knock out every girl with one arm behind my back, no one can knock me out, that type of attitude? Or is it going to be a more humbled Ronda as far as the build up to 207? What do you expect? Or what's good for her, rather?
I actually don't know. I feel like we won't see too much of a different Ronda. I don't see a reason for her to change, so I don't see... you could say that she was humbled in her loss, but I just don't think style-wise she's going to change the way she speaks about herself.
Probably not. Nor should she. She should just be herself.
Yeah.
Ronda Rousey became Ronda Rousey by being herself, like, turned up to, like, 11. And
Yeah.
I think she should only continue doing that. I don't think that she should step back from that. I mean, I think she can be honest about what happened and discuss the loss and everything, but I don't think she needs to completely change, like, her gimmick, so to speak, to bring in pro wrestling terms. I think she can continue being that, but just explain the loss. She can spin the loss.
Yeah.
However she wants to spin the loss.
I can't imagine her changing that. I really
I think
think
it's
she'll
fine.
just have to, and for her own sake, and I think because, she's staying with Edmund and all these things, she's gonna have to spin it. She's gonna have to explain this loss over and over and over again, and she's gonna have to put it in a context that makes sense to her and that won't impede her, training and her mental state for this coming fight.
And she doesn't talk a lot of trash necessarily about an opponent, unless it's someone like Betche Correia who started the trash talk. She didn't have
Well, she talked a lot of trash about Holly.
at weigh-ins, that whole thing. I'm not really sure. I still don't know what happened at weigh-ins that made her go off like that. But before that, she wasn't really talking a lot of trash. She's been respectful to most opponents, saying that they're great opponents, they're toughest opponent that I fought. She said mostly those things, unless it's someone like Tate or Correia, who there's obviously a rivalry there. But I expect her to say a lot of complimentary things about Nunes as well, but also putting herself over. Once again, using pro wrestling terms, I think that it'll be a very similar type of talk than that we're used to from her.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now I guess we've been talking for this about 30 minutes, so it's going to wrap out. Go ahead and give us your predictions for the main event for 207. Not only your prediction, but what happens with the aftermath.
Well, it's only October, so I'm going to not give my prediction just yet. I'll wait until fight week to give my prediction, because I just don't know. We don't know enough. We don't know.
I'd like to wait. I'd like to see both of them train. I'd like to see the footage come in.
It's too early.
I haven't. Yeah, it'd be nice to see them in person first.
Yeah, it's too early
in the
to
coming months.
say.
And I think the on sale for this event is like right before New York. So,
yeah, I wonder if they may. I can see them doing something in New York, some kind of press conference
in New York or something like that. So. We'll know closer to the event. Right now, it's very difficult to say, and it's gonna continue to be difficult to say because, as we said, we haven't seen Rousey in a really long time. There's no telling how she is now. But we'll see.
But you did agree that the line is a bit ridiculous.
The line is ridiculous.
It's a little high, but also I have to say that
the lines are also determined by who would be
the
betting on them.
The lines are put into place to incite people to bet.
Right.
So I think if people say, well, they see, Rousey's a minus 300. I'm gonna put some money on Nunes. That's what they want.
Yeah.
So they're gonna overdo it on one side a little bit to tantalize those people to bet. It'll go back. It'll go back a little bit, I'm sure, before.
It always
before
gets
the fight.
closer before the fight. So
it'll get closer before the fight. Absolutely, no doubt.
Okay.
All betting, by the way, just for recreational purposes. Just throwing that out there. Unless you're in Las Vegas, then it's fine.
And give me your picks for the Manila card.
I predict that Duterte? He will win the day by KO. All right, we're going to wrap this one up. I guess we didn't talk about Conor McGregor and the commission this time around, but we'll save that for next time. It's been fun hanging out. For Esther Lynn, I'm Marc Raimondi. We will see you guys soon.